Hello everyone, it's Scott, and I'm back with the top 15 common reprints from Magic the Gathering Foundations. So we've talked about a lot of different cards throughout the course of Foundation spoiler season, and these are the ones that I think at the common level are going to have the most impact. And many of them have seen previous play in standard seasons and were key parts of decks. And I think they'll be key parts of decks as we move forward as well. But before we get started, remember to like and subscribe to get further content like this in future spoiler seasons. So let's dive into the top 15 comments. So first is Getu Lava Runner. For a red mana, you're getting a human wizard. And if you've got 2 sorcery or instants in your graveyard, it gets +1 and has haste. And Getu Lava Runner, saw a lot of play the first time it was legal in Standard as part of a Wizards deck that was really a burn strategy. And I think because we've got so many burn cards in Standard again, it'll see play again. And number 14, we've got Witness Protection. And Witness Protection is important because it can turn any creature into a green and white citizen with base power and toughness, 1/1, named Legitimate Businessman. And the key here, it loses all of their abilities. So this turns off a Sheoldred, an Atraxa, or anything else that you need to turn into something that really isn't a threat on the battlefield. And number 13, I've got Dragon Fodder. 2 mana, create 2 goblins. We're going to have a goblin deck in Standard. Good card for that deck. And number 12, I've got Cathar Commando. Again, it flashes into play, but more importantly, if you need to, you can sacrifice it to kill an artifact or an enchantment. And really, I think this is going to be a sideboard card because of that in our soldiers deck or humans deck that we're going to have throughout Foundation Standard season and really beyond, because obviously these are going to be legal for 5 years. And number 11, I've got Fanatical Firebrand. Okay, it's a goblin pirate. I know it looks like a monkey, but it's a goblin. And for 1 red mana, you get a 1/1 with haste. And it saw a tremendous amount of play when it was legal, because in the late game, if you couldn't get it through for combat damage anymore, you can always sacrifice it to deal 1 damage to any target. And that allows you to pick off a creature on your opponent's side, or even do that last bit of damage you needed to win the game. And number 10, I have Opt. One of the classic draw spells from Magic's history. It's always been a good blue spell, and it's always going to be. And number 9, I've got Cornelian Orb of Dragonkind. And the key here to this is it's a 3 mana rock that provides red mana. But what it really is important to are our dragon strategies in Standard. Because if you use this mana to cast a dragon, it gains haste until the end of turn. And this turns our dragon strategies into much faster strategies, and I think it's going to see a lot of play because of that. And number 8, we've got Inspiring Overseer, 3 mana. When it enters the play, you gain a life, you draw a card. When it was previously legal in Standard, it saw a lot of play for those abilities, and it's just another good angel for our angel deck. And number 7, I've got Impact Tremors. For 2 mana, you get an enchantment. Whenever a creature enters the battlefield under your control, you deal a damage to your opponent. Simple card, but a very powerful one, because when you get kind of bogged down in the game and you can't really get your creatures through, but you've got creatures to cast, this is a way of just kind of chipping away at the opponent's life total, and hopefully that can be enough to win the game. And number 6, I've got Healer's Hawk, 1 white mana. You get a bird with flying and lifelink, and it was a core part of the Azorius Flyers deck when it was Standard legal. And if we do have a Flyers deck again, the ability to gain a life every turn basically by attacking with this is a really strong ability in any format. And number 5, I've got Bal Rush Banneret. Okay, 2 mana, Kithkin Soldier. And the key thing here is soldier spells cost 1 less to cast. And we already have a bunch of good soldiers currently in Standard, and Foundations has given us a lot more. This, to me, fits immediately into any of our soldier decks as a way of reducing the cost of those soldier spells, so we can get more soldiers onto the battlefield quickly, and by doing that, hopefully you can overrun your opponent. At number 4, we've got Expedition Map, 1 mana. And the key here is you can pay 2, sacrifice it, and go get any land from your deck. And it's been a core part of the Tron strategies for years. And having this in Standard is just a fantastic way of allowing you to go get any land that you need under any circumstances. And I think it's going to see play because of that. At number 3, I've got Bosino Pyromancer. Again, another kind of unassuming card, 2 mana, you get a Lizard Wizard, okay? But you get a body, and it also is a shock, because when it comes into play, it does 2 damage to a Planeswalker or a player. And again, just like Fanatical Firebrand and Getu Lava Runner, when we had a bunch of burn spells in Standard, it was just another burn spell that you could use, but the advantage here was you also had a body left behind that could attack and deal additional damage to your opponent. And number 2, I've got Feed the Swarm. 2 mana, destroy a creature or an enchantment your opponent controls. Black very rarely gets spells that can kill enchantments, and because this can kill an enchantment, I think it's an easy include in black strategies going forward at a minimum in the sideboard, and I can see it main deckable because it is such a powerful card given the current format that we're in Standard. Alright, and my number 1 card is the classic alpha card, Lana War Elves. So Lana War Elves, again, it's from alpha and beta. It's been around since the beginning of Magic, and to me it's the most iconic common that we have. You play it on turn 1. On turn 2, you've got access to an additional mana. If you play multiple copies of it, you can get up to 4 or 5 mana in just a couple of turns if you've got that many in your hand. And the great thing right now for Lana War Elves is we don't have Goblin Chainwhirler in the format, because Goblin Chainwhirler, the last time it was Standard legal, really was a card that made Lana War Elves difficult to play, because red players would play Chainwhirler on turn 3. It does 1 damage to each of your opponent's creatures, and it would kill your Lana War Elves at that point. And it was kind of like, ugh, that happened again. But we don't have that in Standard right now, so I think Lana War Elves are well positioned to help green become a more prominent color in Standard. Alright, so those are my top 15 common reprints from Foundations. I hope you enjoyed the list from the set, and I will be back with more content as we move into Foundations Standard Season. And Innistrad Remaster, we'll do some preview videos there. And then when we get to early next year, we'll be getting to Ether Drift, the next Standard legal set from Magic the Gathering. So thanks for staying to the end of the video and enjoying these. Hopefully you enjoy these videos throughout Foundation spoiler season. And I've left the link to my Foundations preview video so you can look at all of my top list for reprints and new cards from Magic the Gathering Foundations. Thanks for staying to the end of the video, and I will see you in the next one.